concentrate the development in the core of Bethesda closest to the metro, because I thought that's where the highest value was, and that's where you get the most utility out of the development. I think you've got a couple of problems on the horizon. You've got a lingering school problem that in Bethesda Elementary School continues to be a problem, and school projections by the Board of Education and Planning are wrong every year, apparently. And you've got a problem when the planning board tells you it's going to be 15 or 20 years before your traffic comes into balance. That's going to be a serious problem. You cannot have this place bottled up. That's why I supported staging, so that you could deal with the traffic and make sure you had solutions as you allowed the development to go forward. And lastly, on the affordable housing piece, when the planning director says there'll be less affordable housing when this plan is built out than there is today, that's a problem.
Mr. Figger? 30 seconds.
Seeing a lot of residential activity. It's hard to control because you have no mechanisms to control the pace. I would have wished there were some mechanisms to control the pace. So I think the challenge for us is sort of what Nancy said. We've got to make sure that our people, it's not just the Bethesda Urban Partnership, it's the county people, make sure that the parking isn't totally disabled around some of these small businesses. I've had conversations with Al Rushdie and our staff about why they've taken away parking spaces from in front of the small businesses, the preference, people driving up their trucks and parking there. It seems that other jurisdictions manage the building better than Montgomery County seems to be able to manage building. I think that it's a self-inflicted wound, but I think it's us controlling the pace at this point is pretty much out of our hands.
Ms. Florian?
Well, actually, we have rather significant regulatory controls over everything. Actually, Mark and I have agreed on them, and we extract some of the highest impact taxes in the region, if not in the world. We have a very demanding regulatory review process. Anyone who's ever tried to build something around here would confirm that issue. The real question is the private sector and their timing when they go forward. But any project that is being constructed now has met the standards, has satisfied the rules. And in fact, what's cool about Bethesda going forward is, apart from the requirement of additional affordable housing in the new construction, the new residential construction, you'll also have, there's a requirement for an additional park tax to support acquisition of additional green space, and there's a high energy efficiency core to the downtown development in Bethesda that is really going to take Bethesda to new heights in terms of how we address climate change and how we address energy efficiency, which is unique, I think, maybe anywhere. It's very exciting to see that happen.
Mr. Figger?
Controlling parking supply, not for commercial, not for businesses that are doing retail, but for employees, is a standard practice all around the country. And the Council of Governments actually evaluated the 10 things. We were asked to come up with 10 things that would be game changers for the region. One of the top 10 things was policies, not projects. One of the policies was discussions about controlling parking in the urban cores in order to shift more people to transit. And that was supported by the entire TPB, Transportation Planning Board.
Thank you. So let's, you brought up the subject of impact fees was brought up. There seems to be general concern in the community, and I think among you, that the development is taxing both schools and transportation. Do you favor, and I think Ms. Florian said that the developers in this area pay among the highest impact fees in the country. Do you candidates favor increasing those impact fees, and if so, why and by how much? And we are going to start with Ms. Florian this time.
I'm trying to recall, I think we built in an inflationary factor for the current impact fees, but I can't swear that. I've been to a lot of forums recently, and I just don't recall the answer. The challenge, it's a delicate balance. How do we create incentives for providing the right opportunities, for the right amenities, for the right kind of community development opportunities that create great spaces, and at the same time have the players contribute to the necessary infrastructure, be it schools or roadway improvements, transit improvements, and the like. It's a delicate balance. There's no easy answer to all of that. I don't propose raising those fees at this time. They're already pretty high. I think for an individual house, it's something like $23,000. If you build a new house here, anywhere, that's what you pay just to address school construction. So their fees are pretty high, some people tell us.
Mr. Elrich.
So there may be a delicate balance, but the fact is that our traffic has gotten worse, and it costs money to actually build traffic or transit facilities. And school overcrowding has gotten worse. The backlog in the school system now is on the order of $1.5, $1.6 billion. So let's put it this way, if you don't get more of it out of development, then it all comes out of taxpayers. It's not gonna rain down on the county, and you're not gonna get economic development fast enough to throw off taxes, because it didn't happen when Duncan was executive, and then you had a rapid pace of growth. You don't throw off enough additional revenue in order to pay for the infrastructure you need. That's probably why we got in the problem we're in now. This is not a new problem, this is a continuing problem. But I do look at the fee issue differently, and maybe we'll get you to talk about it. I think we ought to move to development districts. And this wasn't my idea originally, this came from Steve Kaufman, who many of you know, who said the impact fee system does not produce timely money for the projects you need, and what you ought to be looking at is development districts.
Mr. Ficker.
We do face challenges in funding our infrastructure and our community needs. We all see our streets, our neighborhoods turn over with more families with new children. We're besieged by regional traffic, not just local drivers. And we need to expand the tax base. There's just no question about that, because otherwise our taxes will have to go up. And how do we support the community that we love? That's the question for all of us in this election.
Go ahead.
So I'll go back to Duncan again, because that was the period that a lot of people look at as the golden era of business expansion. And that was the era in which we spent probably the least amount of money on infrastructure of any time period. I've seen charts that show who spent what money around here, and Duncan was one of the lowest spenders. Surprisingly, Neil Potter had more money and put more money into infrastructure. The problem is, when you grow, you may get revenues, you also get liabilities. A family moves in here, takes a $600,000 house, pays $6,000 in property taxes. If they have 2 kids, the cost of kids in school is $25,000. Do the math.
Okay.
We have a rebuttal.
No, a recent interview with Bethesda Beat, Mr. Elrich said the following: Nancy's notion that I represent some kind of threat to the business community, I really do think is a farce. There's not a single thing I've done that she can point to. I think it's that the developers can go out and say, Mark wants us to pay more, vote for Nancy. So what they try to do is paint me as anti-business, which I am not. Ms. Florine, can you point to one or more things Mr. Elrich has done that you think are anti-business?
Well, I've been in the room with Mark on many, many occasions. We've spent a lot of quality time together, working through issues. And I also know what Mark does in the backside. And I have to say, one of the reasons I'm in this race is because I have seen Mark stymie things, try to get behind things, try to stir up community opposition to things, try to create an environment that opposes just about so many things. I think it's unfortunate, and I think it's wrong. I have to say, there's a room, there's a place for having that point of view about things on the county council. I never post Mark in that regard, but not as the leader of Montgomery County. That is the number one thing. If you want to talk to Sally Sternbach in the audience here, you can hear about his consistent opposition to the redevelopment of Silver Spring, although he would say, oh, no. But that's a fact. Mark had to write okay.
So, Mr. Elrich, I've talked with many people in the business community over the last year, and they clearly are concerned about the prospect of you as county executive. Why do you think that's the case, and why do you think you haven't been more successful in changing their views about you?
Look, I think the development issue in this county has trumped almost everything. This is how we've come to see economic activity, and it's unfortunate because that's actually not economic activity. Figuring out how to draw people to fill spaces is different than zoning property to create more spaces. We haven't done a good job of filling what we've got. Our zoning plans haven't resulted in a flood of new businesses coming here. I think that, I don't control the debate, I don't control the narrative. There is no newspaper around here to report on anything that's going on. So how do you know what the issues are and what council members are talking about if there's no reportage on it? So it's very easy to say this person is against it. I'll go back to the question you asked Nancy. Good luck finding something that I've proposed that's anti-business, because I don't propose things that are anti-businesses. Our differences are over requirements for development, not for requirements for business. And I just find it unfortunate. I've talked to the people in the business community. I'm still waiting for a list of things, and Nancy obviously didn't give you a list of things.
Mr. Ficker, I have a question for you related. Business people.
I was not a candidate in the, prior to July, or actually August. So I did not attend all the forums, but apparently Mark denied having worked with the Chambers of Commerce over issues. They actually had to request an apology. Bethesda and Silver Spring leaders. Mark is the one who sent a letter to Amazon saying, I'm not so bad. His reputation precedes him. And you earn a reputation through your business, through your attitude, how people receive you, and that's one that he's developed on his own.
So I earned my reputation for supporting minimum wage and sick and safe leave, which I led on and which Nancy voted for, but I will say not very enthusiastically. And that's something that did concern the business community, but our votes ironically were the same at the end of the day. On Silver Spring, yeah, I opposed the mega mall and the wave pool. However, the project that came there, I enthusiastically supported, and the citizens group, which I was involved with, said we want a street-facing, outward-facing project. I supported that from day one, and when Folger's project came to the table from the county executive, I supported it when it came to the table. So I wasn't opposed to all redevelopment. That's just not true.
Mr. Ficker. Increases in the last 10 years. 2 questions. Given your support for those tax increases in the past, why should voters believe your no tax hike pledge? And how can you be sure that a tax increase won't be necessary in future years, especially if we experience an economic downturn, Mr. Elrich?
So I can't speak to out future years until they arrive here, and then you have to decide what you have to do. I think it would be a disaster to accept a bad economic climate and decline in revenues and then start cutting our schools and cutting the things, police and fire, that everybody values here. So I think you'd have to look at that situation differently. I think that the challenge for this county right now is actually trying to figure out how to do a better job with the money we control. We don't control what goes to the school system. We know that. So I've made a big point in my campaign of saying we're going to look at restructuring the county government from top to bottom, restructuring procurement and procurement processes from top to bottom. No one thinks we're the most efficient place in the world. I get recitations regularly about how inefficient, ineffective, and actually cumbersome we are. I think we can change that, and I think we have a responsibility to figure out how to work smarter and how to work better. People who've been through, I talked to people who've been through like the Six Sigma program that was done at Lockheed, and lean processes and business reviews, the business process reviews, and these
Your
things
time's
work.
up. Thank you. Ms. Florin.
Well, I don't think rearranging the deck chairs is going to achieve a lot of savings for Montgomery County. Sure, we can reduce some of our job positions through attrition, and I'm optimistic about our use of greater technology. I really do think we need leadership to be lean and mean about how we make decisions. That's what the Post alluded to when they referred to my fiscal discipline experience. But we need to be responsive. When we've had to look at tax increase issues, we have tried to save our school system. We have tried to preserve our values for Montgomery County. I think that's what people expect of Montgomery County leadership. I don't see that happening in the future if we can pull this all together, if we work together, stop demonizing the players, encourage investment, encourage job growth, and take advantage of who we are as a great community.
Mr. Ficker, question for you. Here's the demand for spending for schools and social services. Infrastructure is expected to outpace tax revenue. Without a tax increase, how would you bridge the gap as county executive? Ms. Florine, we'll start with you.
Well, I've said it several times. We have to expand our tax base. We have to support investment, and we have to support new jobs coming here. We also need a leader who can work with Annapolis across party lines, who can work to support the revenue stream that we need to encourage to expand from the state. Right now, Mark Corman was here. I guess he had to go to work. But working with our delegation, the new governor, whoever that person is, the rest of the state thinks our streets are paved with gold. If we have a super progressive leader in place, that will just reinforce the feeling that Montgomery County will tax its own people to pay for everything. We have a big target on our backs as we go forward, as we look at education funding. Through the current commission reports that we expect to come out shortly, they're rearranging their school formula funding. You're going to need someone who will go to the mat for Montgomery County and be able to cross party lines in doing that.
Thank you. Mr. Ficker.
Repeat the question, please.
So I've worked with the state. I brought 2 housing programs from Hogan's housing folks to Montgomery County after I read about them in the newspaper and I saw they were doing in other jurisdictions. I thought we should bring them here. I brought Holt together with Leggett, and we embraced 2 programs from the state and put them in effect. I work with state highway people all the time. We're working on re-looking at the CCT. We're looking at what to do in I-270. I have a suggestion that's actually being considered. So working with the state's not going to be a problem with me, regardless of who the governor is. But I find it ironic. I don't believe in trickle down. I don't believe in telling people we're just going to grow the economy and the problems are going to go away. Our problem is today. And I feel like I flipped the script on this, but I'm talking about seriously restructuring the county government. This is not rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. The business community does this. No one would accuse them of rearranging the deck chairs. Other people do this and do this seriously. I have every intention of doing it seriously and making a difference here so I can find more money out of what we already have.
Anybody? I'll start with you because it's related to what you were just talking about. You've mentioned your desire to restructure county government throughout the campaign. In your 12 years on the council, can you name any legislation or budget item that you sponsored that resulted in restructuring of any part of the government?
So I actually tried to do it twice. I tried to get the county to look at combining park police with the county police because it turns out the county police provide most of the services in most of the county parks except the big parks. And the county police have their own separate bureaucracy and administration. And I thought we could be more effective using county policemen around the parks, taking the police force from the park service, integrating with the county police force, which would get us more officers on the road without necessarily having to go through hiring more officers, and that we could maintain special programs for the large parks, which need to be treated different than the small parks. I also tried to get the county executive, and he sent over a proposal, didn't go anywhere, to look at restructuring Health and Human Services to make sure there was a single point of intake instead of having people going to multiple places, and consolidate some of those services in one place. The fact that people like Nancy, she's not the only one, who say you're not going to get anything out of rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, that's what stops us from changing things.
Thank you. Mr. Ficker, you video ad of the campaign, you described yourself as a lifelong Democrat. Yet you left the party in order to challenge Mr. Elrich, who was chosen by Democratic voters as the party's candidate. How can you both tout your loyalty to the party and run against the party's nominee?
Well, I had to do it. That's what the rules required. I've been elected 4 times at large as a Democrat. I've twice been elected as a delegate to the Democratic National Convention. Actually, the party did a very nice tribute to me in the spring. And of course, we're all a little chagrined about that at this point. Nobody knew that I was going to do this in this summer, certainly not me, and certainly not them. But I felt the choices here are too extreme. I really do believe that, and that's what a lot of people feel. And that's why so many people came to me and asked me to jump into this race. I regret that I had to step away from the party. I'm not opposed to democratic principles, and frankly, I think this race is really about how do we support those principles? How do we become inclusive? You know, when Tony Hausner, a good friend of Mark's, put out an email when I got into the race saying, oh no, Nancy's going to bring out moderate Democrats and moderate Republicans to vote. Is that a bad thing?
I do, yes, for you. Yeah, if you were elected, will you re-register as a Democrat?
Yes.
Anybody want to rebut any of those? Anybody else?
Look, I'm the Democratic nominee. I have gotten the support of pretty much the entire Democratic Party here. And that's not a small thing. In other jurisdictions, progressives have found the party running away from progressives. The reason I don't have that problem here is I actually have a long track record in the county. People know that I do pretty much mainstream work. My legislation has always been mainstream. I don't propose radical, strange things. I understand what the limits are here, and that's the limits I work with.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're going to change of closing the achievement gap in Montgomery County Public Schools. Mr. Ficker, in a recent interview with Bethesda Beat, you gave the following answer when asked how you would close the gap without more county funding being available. You said, quote, "The problem is that kids aren't going into the library. We need to teach our kids to love."
I refer everybody in this room to a brilliant piece published in Bethesda magazine in their September-October issue called "The Pursuit of Equity." And it quotes me at when we approved the school system's budget about encouraging the Board of Education to make hard decisions about how we address equity and fairness in how our educational resources are distributed and how our kids are taught. I think there are serious issues, and I talked to Jack Smith about that just the other day, how we can go forward and address these things. As you know, the school system is its own separate institution, not subject to subject control by the county executive or the county council. But we can work together, and we can back each other up in making difficult decisions. I think there are serious issues about how we're spending resources and whether our kids are getting the same education, whether they be here in Bethesda, Germantown, or in Ashton. There are issues that we need to continue to work on.
Mr. Eldridge.
So this problem is a lot deeper than what the school system does. I was a teacher for 17 years in one of the most impoverished schools or impacted schools in the county. And when kids come to school hungry, when they come to school from families that are economically insecure, where people don't know where they're going to live from month to month, it makes it really challenging for students to actually function in the classroom. I'm a big believer in early childhood education. That's one of the reasons I want to restructure government, is to try to find money to do some of the things we otherwise would not be able to do. I think that when you have a system where 50% of the kids enter kindergarten at the age of 5, 2 years behind, this is a problem that starts before the first Montgomery County teacher touched them, the first curriculum had any impact on them. This goes deeper. We need to do early childhood education programs. We know from the data that if you do early childhood education, kids arrive at school at grade level. Kids who arrive at grade level tend to stay at grade level, and it's good for the school system, it's good for kids, and it's a fundamental problem that underlies what actually happens with the school system.
Mr. Ficker.
So we entered into an unprecedented agreement with the school system with respect to how they were going to spend additional resources and how they're going to target them to special programs. I think the county executive can work with the school system in continuing that conversation. I've already started that conversation in the past, and I'm very optimistic about how, instead of having conflicting objectives, the county executive and the school system can work together to really agree on solutions in advance of budgetary debates.
Again, this is a reduction of a problem, the whole problem to the school system. I've been talking to Jack Smith and his predecessors for years about what happens in the schools, and I don't fault the schools for their inability to achieve some of the stuff they've done. I don't disagree with Nancy about I think, fundamental inequality in some of the schools, in some of the school districts in this county, but the fact remains that if you don't get the kids early before they enter school, you have a problem that is incredibly difficult to deal with in school. You can't get away from that, and that's what the data shows, and I don't know why we're ignoring it.
Let's stay on the subject of schools and let's turn to school construction. School overcrowding is a major problem in the county, and each of you has spoken up in favor of increasing funding for new schools. Regardless of any future changes to state school construction formula, the county will still be responsible for providing the majority of the funds. As county executive, with all the other demands, how do you fund more schools? And we'll start with Ms. Florine.
Well, that will be my first priority. There is no question there's significant need, whether it's new capacity issue or whether it's renovations in existing facilities. We have a continued backlog, there's no question. Regardless of growth, we have old school facilities that need to be refurbished and expanded. And I think we have the resources to make that happen.
Mr. Elrich?
I kind of got a laugh about that one. The school system sent over a request for $389 million this year for school construction. The executive budgeted $309 only after I pushed to rearrange a project which Nancy likes and I thought should be secondary to a school issue. Did we bump it up to $329? If it was so easy, if there was just money in the budget, how come we didn't find the other $60 million? Your leadership, certainly if you could find 500, should have been able to find 60. We've got a real problem. If we're not going to increase our bonding, which we've actually lowered our bonding, the amount of bonding we're going to do this year for financial reasons, if you're not going to increase your bonding, tell me where the money comes from. If you're going to throw Montrose Parkway and M83 into the county's capital budget, tell me how you do those things and also do any additional money for schools. This is just made up math, and when Kojo pushed her on where you're going to get the $500 million, she just said it's a big budget at the end of the day. After a minute of not answering, it was like, it's a big budget. Yeah, it's a big budget. Where's his money?
Mr. Ficker?
Well, I think
Like most and what they liked least about Montgomery County. Virtually all of them said the same thing about what they liked least, traffic. All three of you have made transportation a priority in your campaigns. Please discuss what your transportation priorities would be. Starting with you, Mr. Ficker.
In a minute, right. Okay, so Bus Rapid Transit Network, actually get back to putting it in place, focusing on single reversibles rather than trying to do a Cadillac system that doesn't provide the value that we need. I'll point out that again, the Council of Governments, the Transportation Planning Board, Bus Rapid Transit regionally was identified as one of the 10 things that we ought to be doing. The Post ran an article on 22 business leaders who said the biggest deficit and hold back in this region was the lack of an adequate bus network. I proposed an adequate bus network 10 years ago. I'm still waiting for it to get into process. I would do the two reversibles on I-270, but there is a possibility the state's looking at. I suggested capturing the inside service lane on I-270, turning it into the HOV lane, which would add a through lane. The state is looking at restriping I-270. They've begun it. It's possible to get 2 lanes, they think, possibly without any major work on I-270, and I absolutely support that, and I think the state needs to do it.
Thank you.
That's 2 of them.
Yeah. Ms. Florine?
Well, the popular progressive approach to all this is to say everyone should take the bus. Usually it's everybody else, so I can personally drive myself. I really think we can improve our transit system and actually we're piloting some of that up in Rockville, where we have more smaller neighborhood focused transit programs. We'll see how that works in terms of serving our residents. But I do believe that we need to be more creative in thinking about how we look at transportation generally. I'm proposing that we start talking about a regional transportation authority. And not one that just stops at our borders. That's what I can propose. But the real issue is how we think bigger. I mean, this county is part of a region. It's part of, we're dealing with traffic flow from Frederick, from Washington County, from Carroll. That's what's all coming down. Howard, that's what's all coming down Route 29. And that's what's all coming down 270. And when our people can't get on those roads, which we use as our local roads, because we haven't built the infrastructure that we need, we have a problem. I'll note, if you're gonna argue about infrastructure in this campaign, you have a record of voting against things like the
Time's up.
ICC, M83,
Ms. Flory, your
and
time's up,
the
please.
Montrose
Yeah.
Parkway. How are we gonna get around?
If you could, again, are there road projects that you think need to be done? And what are they? And Mr. Fricker, we'll start with you.
Well, I just,
Well, I ran for office in 2002 because I was so annoyed, based on my planning history on the planning board, that the county wasn't delivering on the infrastructure improvements it had promised in our plans. I apologize, I'm a wonk when it comes to actually delivering on transportation promises. And these are the kinds of, Mark, we had this argument last night, still. Mark is still arguing about the ICC that's up and running and actually delivering. We still need our other roads, M83, we need to finish building the Montrose Parkway East, and we need to do transit as well. Certainly 270 and 29 remain challenges, and we do need to look at transit on those things. We do need to look at reversible roads and lanes, and we do need to think more creatively. There are things like electronic lane changing that could be employed. There are things that are occurring all over the world that Montgomery County is not taking advantage of, nor is the state. And I applaud the governor for starting the conversation. How it's gonna end, we'll see. But at the end of the day, we need to be more creative, and we need to find solutions for everything.
Mr. Elbridge.
So I supported the Watkins Mill interchange, which I thought was important. While I don't support M83, I think there's an alternative road solution, which is you don't have 2 extra lanes of traffic on the 2 lanes that are coming out of Clarksburg today. That's impossible. So what I proposed is adding a 5th lane to 355 from Clarksburg down to Montgomery Village Avenue, 3 lanes southbound in the morning, 3 lanes northbound in the evening, giving you traffic capacity where you need it, running the BRT up there, which is part of the plan, and also doing that in reversible lanes, so I'm not using 2 lanes to accomplish it. And the whole point of that is to unload the whole 355 corridor. Clarksburg's problem isn't start with Clarksburg, it starts because it's running into the back end of Montgomery Village and Gaithersburg, for which there is very limited capacity. Adding the 5th lane unloads the road farther south, so the cars coming from the north run into a less congested environment. I support either the reversibles or 2 additional lanes on 270, and on Montrose Parkway, I've asked the county and the planning board to look at an alternative alignment.
Anybody want to rebut a lot of money? And we've also been talking about that the economy needs to grow, the tax base needs to grow. But do you believe that budget cuts will be necessary to do the things you want to do? And if so, where do you see making those cuts? Mr. Elrich, we'll start with you.
Well, if you're going to reduce the workforce, there should be some reduction in the budget. I mean, my goal is to try to create some space in the existing budget, so either if we need to do things we're not able to do right now, we can do it within the taxes and the limits we currently have. If you don't do that, everything we want to do is additive. There's no way to do any of the things anybody talked about, and I've talked to my colleagues on the incoming council, that you can't have a Christmas tree of things you want to do in a time where there's no money to even do the things you're doing today. So I want to focus, I really do, on the restructuring aspect. I believe this is more than rearranging deck chairs on a Titanic. I believe the people who've done Six Sigma and the lean processes achieve genuine savings. They get long-term benefits in the workplace, because all of these are premised on creating a workforce that looks at their jobs in terms of added value. How do they become part of continuous improvement, as opposed to just rearranging the deck chairs when people have no buy-in and you've just eliminated a bunch of jobs? I think we can do it.
Thank you. Mr. Ficker.
We have unions. We have negotiated solutions to employment. Mark has apparently told business people that he's proposing to reduce the workforce by 20 to 40%. It's inconceivable, so they must have heard it wrong. They must have heard it wrong. But there's just so much that you can do through attrition. Government is a people servicing project. We're about people, helping people. Big complaint I get is I can't get through to a person when I'm trying to communicate with the government. I can only deal with an unresponsive 311 system. When was the last time that I could actually get to a decision? That requires people in those positions. No doubt there are some who I will not replace, but we need people to deliver real services and protect our values.
May I just follow up with you?
Sure.
But do you believe that budget cuts will be required, and if so, where would you make them?
I'm not planning them.
Okay. Any rebuttal, Mr. Elrich?
Yeah, look, it's just a flat out lie to say that I said to anybody that I'm gonna cut the workforce 20 to 40%. I've talked about 200 to 300 vacancies that might get created in a year and moving people around to fill those vacancies rather than doing new hires. But I've never talked about absurd numbers like that to anybody. And to misrepresent it is just, it's convenient, but it's not really true, and I really resent that. I'm just flabbergasted by that argument. I mean, and you don't have to fire people. The whole point of working with the workforce is to retrain people for different jobs.
Mr. Elrich?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead. Productive relationship with the council as county executive.
I've passed major legislation through this council, some of the most difficult legislation anybody's done. Getting a housing bill that supported tenants' rights was not a walk in the park. Getting 2 minimum wage increases was not a walk in the park. Getting 10 Mile Creek done, and almost everything I've done, I've managed to do with unanimous votes. So I can work with my colleagues. I've not really been interested in being council president because I had 2 experiences. One was being asked that if I support you for county
Council.
the president of the council, whatever, if I support you for that, I want this. I don't do that stuff. I'm not trading a vote for a position for a vote on something somebody wants. I don't think that's right. And the other thing is, as the county council president, I would have been expected to go out and defend decisions which I fundamentally disagree with. I do not want to have to go out to a community and say, now here's the county council's take, and here's why I think they're wrong. I value my independence, and I've been able to be independent. I've not had to say 2 different things at 2 different times.
Thank
I
you,
like
Mr.
it
Elrich.
where I am.
Yeah. Ms. Florian, much of your campaign funding has come from developers or people involved in related businesses. What signal do you believe that sends to voters in the county who are concerned about that the pace of development is too great?
Well, I'm really proud to have had support from every corner of Montgomery County. I couldn't qualify for public financing, which I would have been delighted to be able to do because the rules precluded it. You had to be a candidate in May. I've satisfied those rules. I was not that person. I'm proud to have support of farmers. I'm proud to have support of business people. I'm proud to have support of folks of every background. This is about people who've invested in Montgomery County and who care about our future. All of us. Whether you're my plumber, who gets characterized as a developer by some people, people who are architects, people who are bankers, these are evil developers to some people. That's unfortunate. This is polarization. I'm not dumping on people who are supporting any of my opponents here. Why don't we focus on the future? Why don't we focus on what we stand for and what our issues are? That's what this election is about.
Rebuttal, anyone for any of that? All right, let's move on to everyone's favorite topic, the Department of Liquor Control. At least the favorite topic of many people in this room. Would you, as county executive, and I realize it's a state issue in this case, but come out in favor of a referendum to let county voters decide whether to keep the DLC as it is, or to privatize the distribution and sale of liquor in the county? And Mr. Elrich.
Look, I don't support privatization of liquor sales. It is more than $30 million to the county right now. It's 2 cents on the tax rate. It would not be a big stretch to get ourselves to about $50 million in revenue. In a time of shortages of revenue, it would be nice to have some source of revenue that didn't come out of taxes. I think that people are have been misled about what they get because the state system is a system of monopolies. The different liquor distributors in the state don't compete with each other. The price of every bottle of liquor is the same in every county, to every restaurant and every store, regardless of where you are. So you don't get a monopoly-free system. You don't get a system of competition. So my goal is to meet with particularly the restaurant owners, and I've already talked to some people after this election to talk about what aren't they getting that they think they should get. I believe that if the private sector can deliver, we should be able to deliver. We need to be open to changes to make that possible.
All right, Ms. Florian?
Well, I am willing to declare that prohibition is over in Montgomery County. I think we can phase out, and I changed my mind on this, I confess, over the past couple of years. I'd resisted the concept, but I do think we can phase out of it. We still have a revenue obligation with respect to our liquor bonds that has to be respected. We still have employees that we need to respect, but there's no reason for the government to still be in this business. It's $30 million. We have a $6 billion budget, if you add it all up. There are ways to address this. We could ease out, certainly with respect to the beer and wine portion of all of this. There are ways to actually make some money in the short term and look at a solution for the long term with respect to the hard liquor part. But I do think it's time to say, let's get out of it. There are a lot of state law issues associated with this, and some of the pet peeves are things that we can address locally. But basically, I'm with you on this.
Mr. Fick.
Of opportunity and excitement that this county already has, but we don't take advantage of it. We need a county executive who's going to be a very visible champion for us, whether it's locally, with our small businesses, with our larger businesses, with our region. We need a county executive who's going to be a little more robust, who's going to be a little bolder, who might take a few chances. But Montgomery County needs a leader who will be visible and present, both here in Annapolis and frankly, leading us forward through so many challenges as we grow. Montgomery County residents need to know what's going on in Montgomery County and need to feel the excitement that we already have here. And I'm going to work on that.
All right, final question. You're in your office celebrating with your staff. What 3 accomplishments in that first year are you going to be celebrating that day, Mr. Fisher?
Well, number one, we will have started work on working with our neighbors in Annapolis with respect to Regional Transportation Authority. I will have started work with our educational leaders on an effort to create, start thinking about how we create a 4-year research institution here in Montgomery County. Right now, we have a cobbled together system between Montgomery College and the universities at Shady Grove. We need to build on that. One idea that's been put forth is to start out with an Academy of Sciences and Technology from some of our leaders, like the head of MedImmune, Martine Rothblatt over at United Therapeutics, some of our great business leaders to get together and create a basis for research and talk about how we can support each other in our growth. And finally, I think I will be looking at how we fund the school construction budget. That's the number one thing I think that's going to be a priority for me as well.
Mr. Ulrich, what will you and your staff be celebrating?
I think we'll be celebrating making progress on implementing early childhood and also dealing with the school construction budget. I think we'll be celebrating, we're actually moving BRT, bus rapid transit, forward because it actually will have high value to the business community and to residents in this county. But the thing I really want to celebrate, I want at the end of my first year not to hear again that this is the worst place to do business in the universe. And so what I've talked about doing, and again, Nancy and I differ, but I wanted to create a task force with Sid Kramer's offered to lead it, do a quick study of how is much in every place around us, because we keep hearing this. And as soon as we get the study, we will implement legislation, bring forward legislation that makes sure Montgomery County is not doing things in a way that other jurisdictions aren't doing them, not charging fees that are out of line with what other jurisdictions charge, and dealing with the issue of grandfathering in existing buildings, which I know for a lot of businesses seeking to expand or open new is a major issue. The issue of coming under 2018 codes in older buildings is really challenging and expensive.
Thank you, Mr.
Positions both in the council, led the Washington Metropolitan Council on Air Quality, chaired the Climate Change Steering Committee for the region. I have worked with communities far and wide to find community-based solutions. We are at a pivotal time in our growth. Are we gonna keep arguing about the issues of the past, or are we gonna move forward? That's the question. Are we gonna take advantage of our great workforce? Are we gonna take advantage of our great businesses? Are we gonna support them? Are we gonna create an environment of success and opportunity for everyone? Are we going to grow the economic boat? Are we gonna focus on minimum wage? Or are we gonna focus on great wages? That's our future, and that's really what's at issue in this campaign. We have a great opportunity to do the right thing for Montgomery County, to celebrate who we are, to support our values, to support our great nonprofits, to support those people in need and the people who are successful. Let's work together to make that happen. I ask for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Florian. Mr. Elrich.
So I'd invite all of you to go take a look at my website and look at the information I put there. Look at the discussion of how I deal with growth and business in this county. Look at my ideas about schools and all the other issues that we're confounded with. I've tried to lay out today an approach which I think is thoughtful, that actually has ideas for how we move forward. I'm not relying on hope. I'm not relying on, I just hope the economy grows and it all trickles down and we get to do all these things. I think our problems are today. I think you need a county executive who's going to hit the ground running on day one and say, how do I make this government more manageable, more efficient? Because I don't have time for money to come in 4, 5, 6 years from now. My problem is the next budget. And that's the kind of leadership I'll provide. I'm thoughtful. I actually listen to people. I compromise. Anybody who worked with me on minimum wage and sick and safe leave knows that on really difficult issues, I was there to create compromises to make it possible for everybody to live with these things. I think that Montgomery County's got a great future. We have really good resources. We have really intelligent people here. We've got the opportunity to do more. We need to do a better job with how we use our resources, how we use our people, how we involve the community. And I think I'm the person to do that. I've made my career on working with people in the community and trying to bring people together. I'm the guy who negotiates ZTAs with neighbors and with developers. I hope I can
Thank
get
you,
your
Mr.
support.
Elrich.
Thank you.
Mr. Figger, 90 seconds.